The morning had started like any other on Lorraine, ITV's beloved daytime show. Lorraine Kelly, warm as ever, was already in her signature pastel outfit, sipping her tea while skimming through the cue cards. The studio hummed with routine energy, camera tests, lighting adjustments, whispered directions through earpieces. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Nothing, until Simon Cowell walked in. Dressed in his usual crisp white shirt and sunglasses despite it being indoors, Simon strode into the set as though he owned it. The crew exchanged glances. They all knew Simon was a strong personality, but no one expected drama at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. Lorraine stood to greet him, her smile polite yet slightly cautious. "Simon, darling, lovely to have you," she said, holding out her hand. "You too, Lorraine," he replied, flashing a tight smile as he removed his sunglasses and tucked them into his shirt. But the tension in his jaw didn't go unnoticed. The segment was meant to be a light interview promoting Simon's upcoming talent initiative, something about discovering unsigned musicians worldwide through an AI-powered platform. A typical promotional appearance. But Simon seemed wound up, as if he'd walked in with something heavy on his shoulders. The cameras rolled. "We're joined this morning," Lorraine began brightly, "by the iconic Simon Cowell, who's launching a brand new music project. Simon, tell us about this exciting venture." Simon leaned back in his chair, clasping his hands. "Well, Lorraine, I've grown tired of how manufactured the industry has become. Everyone keeps saying I made it that way, but that's not." Lorraine playfully cut in, "Well, Simon, you did shape quite a lot of it." The audience laughed. Simon didn't. He gave her a sharp look. "I think that's a bit unfair." Lorraine blinked, surprised. "It was just a light comment, Simon. No offense meant. I'm just saying," he continued, "people always blame me for everything wrong in the industry." "Not blame, Simon, just acknowledge," she replied gently. The tension spread like a ripple across the room. The producers in the control booth exchanged anxious looks. Lorraine tried to shift the conversation. "Let's talk about the new platform." But Simon interrupted. No, I think we should talk about that remark. You do realize comments like that affect how people see me." Lorraine's smile faltered. "Simon, sweetheart, we're live. I think you're taking this a bit too seriously." Simon snapped. "So now I'm overreacting." The room went silent. Even the studio lights seemed to dim. Lorraine exhaled, trying to regain control. "Simon, this is a morning show, love. People want positivity. Let's just move on." But Simon had crossed some internal threshold. "You always do this," he said, pointing a finger. "You invite people on and poke at them with cheeky little comments, acting like it's harmless." Lorraine's eyebrows shot up. "Now hang on. I've been doing this for decades. You know me better than that." "Well, maybe after decades it's time to rethink how you treat your guests," Simon replied coldly. A collective gasp spread through the studio audience. Lorraine sat back, stunned. "That's out of line, Simon." Simon shrugged. "It's the truth." At that moment, the producer's voice came urgently through Lorraine's earpiece. "Wrap this now," he whispered. "End the segment." Lorraine nodded subtly, her professionalism kicking back in. "All right, we're going to take a quick break." "No," Simon said loudly. "I'm not done." Lorraine's eyes hardened. "I'm afraid we are." She turned towards the camera. "We'll be right back after this." Simon leaned forward, his tone icy. "I didn't come here to be disrespected." Lorraine didn't look at him. She simply gave the cue to cut to commercial. The moment the cameras went off, chaos erupted. The floor manager hurried over. "Simon, you need to step off set for a moment." Simon stood abruptly. "Are you throwing me out?" "No one is throwing you out," Lorraine said, finally meeting his eyes. "But we won't continue like this." Simon scoffed. "Fine, if you don't want the truth." "Truth," Lorraine said, standing now too. "You turned a simple comment into a personal attack." Crew members gathered nervously, unsure whether to intervene or keep their distance. "Simon," the producer said firmly, stepping in, "we're asking you to leave the set." Simon stared at him, stunned. For a moment, no one breathed. "Unbelievable," he muttered. "This show has completely lost its professionalism." He grabbed his sunglasses, shoved them back on, and stormed toward the exit. Lorraine sat back in her chair, rubbing her temples. "This is definitely going to trend," her co-host muttered from behind the scenes. Lorraine sighed. And it's not even 9:30. The studio was left in a thick, buzzing silence, everyone processing the surreal moment they'd just witnessed. The fiery clash wasn't over. Not even close. The moment Simon Cowell stormed out, the studio atmosphere felt like it had been struck by lightning. The air sizzled with shock, whispers, and a hum of disbelief. Lorraine sat perfectly still in her chair, staring at her reflection in the blank monitor ahead. "Is he really gone?" Lorraine finally asked. The producer nodded. "He's already in the hallway." Lorraine let out a long, steady breath. Good. But the drama wasn't over, not by a long shot. Backstage chaos. As Simon made his way toward the exit, camera assistants, makeup artists, and interns froze like statues. He marched past them, muttering under his breath, every step an echo of frustration. Near the side hallway, a junior producer gathered the courage to step in front of him. "Mr. Cowell, wait, could we please clarify what happened? We need a statement before." Simon cut him off sharply. "Before what? Before you spin the narrative and make me look like a villain." "No, sir. ITV needs an internal report." "I'm done with ITV," Simon snapped. "I shouldn't have come." He shoved the door open and disappeared into the corridor, leaving the poor producer trembling. Inside the studio, Lorraine still hadn't moved. Her co-host Ross, who had been scheduled for the next segment, walked over. "Lorraine, are you all right?" She nodded slowly. "I'm fine. I've dealt with worse. But Simon, something's off. He's not himself." "Believe me," Ross said dryly, "this clip is going to be everywhere by lunchtime." Lorraine gave a tired smile. "I know. The clip that broke the internet." True to Ross's prediction, the moment the show returned from commercial break, the control room phones began buzzing. Twitter was already exploding. Hashtag Simon storms off. Hashtag Lorraine clash. Hashtag morning show drama. Clips from viewers' screen recordings spread like wildfire. Some supported Lorraine, praising her composure. Others defended Simon, claiming he was set up and prodded. By midday, every news outlet, from tabloids to entertainment channels, had picked up the story. Lorraine watched the frenzy unfold on her phone during a short break. She sighed, shaking her head. "All because of one sentence," she murmured. But deep down, she knew it wasn't really about the sentence, it was about something simmering beneath Simon's calm surface. Simon's manager intervenes. At that very moment, Simon sat in the backseat of his car, rubbing his forehead while his manager, David, lectured him from the front. "Simon, you can't blow up on live television. This is going to be a PR nightmare." Simon stared out the window. "She provoked me." David sighed. "She made a joke." Lorraine always jokes. "It wasn't a joke. It was yet another dig about me ruining the industry." "Simon, everyone in the industry praises your contribution. You're imagining the criticism." Simon didn't respond. He wasn't thinking about Lorraine anymore. He was thinking about the hundreds of comments he had read earlier that morning, strangers criticizing his new project, mocking his ideas, calling him irrelevant. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. And coming on Lorraine's show had become the breaking point. David softened his voice. "Look, we'll fix this. But you need to issue a statement. Something calm." Simon finally looked up. "I'm not apologizing. That's not what I said. Just explain yourself. Show people you're human." Simon leaned back. "I'll think about it." But even as he said it, he knew thinking wasn't enough. The internet was already painting him in the worst light. Lorraine's on-air response. Near the end of the show, Lorraine finally addressed the elephant in the room. "I want to speak briefly about what happened earlier with Simon Cowell," she began, calm but firm. "Live television can be unpredictable. Guests can be emotional. Things can escalate. I have great respect for Simon and wish him all the best. We'll leave it at that." The audience applauded softly. Lorraine nodded. Now, moving on. But everyone knew that even though she had moved on, the public hadn't. The evening surprise. Later that night, as Lorraine sat at home in her kitchen, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. She opened it. "Greater than, Lorraine, it's Simon. I owe you an explanation. Can we talk?" Lorraine set the phone down, startled. A slow, thoughtful frown settled on her face. She typed back carefully. "Greater than, yes, I'm listening." Seconds later, her phone rang. She hesitated, then answered. "Lorraine, Simon said, his voice surprisingly soft, I'm sorry. And there's something you need to know. She straightened in her chair. What is it? There was a long pause. Then Simon said, everything you saw today wasn't about you. It's about something that's happening behind the scenes. Something big. And I think it's about to go public. Lorraine's heart skipped. What do you mean? But Simon didn't answer. Not yet.